We do like this kind of party because it's a Christmas party here on the Dynasty Hour tonight. That's right. It's Wednesday night. I am Andrew LeDuc, a.k.a. Mr. Mallard, joined tonight only by the Chuck Bass. And I say only just because we usually have two other guys joining us, but there is no only about Chuck. He rocks the show. Chuck, how are you tonight? You're on mute. Solid star.
Oh my gosh, that's how I like to roll. I had to pull my pants up. Sorry. This is like our company Christmas party. I like that. It's either that or we're like the straight to DVD sequel to like a Christmas movie where they couldn't afford like the main cast didn't want to come back, so it's like Cousin Eddie's Christmas.
Yeah, I love that. That's definitely us. And speaking of just on a personal note here, anybody else's company completely dogged them on Christmas this year? No gift, no bonus, no nothing. Just pretending like the holiday ain't happening this year. It's a little bummer.
Oh gosh, they shut it down. They went straight happy holiday. They didn't even go happy holidays on you guys. Damn.
No, I think they panicked because we were supposed to, like, we always have a big Christmas party, but then like a few weeks ago we held some sort of seminar for engineers and it turned into a COVID super spreader, and then they just canceled all parties, and I think they just panicked and didn't have a second plan, so they just kind of trying to skate through the holiday without us noticing.
Yeah, that's like their dream, honestly. It's their secret dream to not have to do anything and save a little nickel and dime, and that's just HR in a nutshell.
I know, right? But it is what it is. But let's get into some news here, because look, we're in the fantasy playoffs, so a lot of leagues are either doing their semifinals or some really forward-thinking leagues are starting their 2-week championship weeks this week. So we're all over the board, but that hasn't stopped the NFL from completely collapsing, as if they're not thinking about us fantasy players at all. Injuries left and right. Guys, first of all, I guess let's start here. Are we all happy that we can finally put the Aaron Rodgers stuff to bed? It's done. It's over with. He's done. And we all saw it coming, but I'm so happy that I don't have to hear about people expecting him to come back anymore.
It is equal parts happy and sad. It's happy because we had to watch the Jets without him this year, and the worst case scenario is that he comes back and there's any injury at all. So happy that that's not happening. I'm sad because I have become an Aaron Rodgers guy, and it's just because he just like chooses to do everything you're not supposed to do from a PR standpoint, from from your verbiage to like your kind of like carefree McConaughey attitude that he has. So I kind of wanted to see him like come back and throw a pass and then just sit on the bench. So then everybody could spend all summer interpreting it in all kinds of weird different ways. But just add that to the Christmas list of things I did not get.
Well, that's true. And we're going to get into that later because, like we said, this is our Christmas episode. We're going to go over our Christmas lists later on in the show. But speaking of the Jets, with Aaron Rodgers now officially out, it seems like Zach Wilson will do something here with this team for the rest of the year, but has also been informed he's going to be traded or released or something. He will not be with this team next year, it looks like. Does it matter to you? Does it do anything? Is he salvageable somewhere else?
No, this is so funny because this is usually what they do with vets who are like, they didn't want the locker room to be split between like two guys, right? Like you hear this as a potential problem with Justin Fields as why they shouldn't draft another quarterback and do a camp battle, because like there are going to be guys that are going to be loyal to Justin Fields for what he's providing for maybe their, career seasons, from DJ Moore, from Cole Kmet. So like, the fact that they would come out and say this about Zach Wilson, who everyone's like, I don't want to ever see him again. It's really like they are scraping No wonder Rodgers wanted to play on this team. They are doing anything they can to stay in the limelight, and it's hard to watch.
I mean, the Jets have always been hard to watch, but for some reason, this this adds to it somehow, which is I didn't think was possible any more than it already is. But yeah, so Zach Wilson. Look, I personally, I think I view him as like Sam Bradford for some reason, but without the drama. Like obviously with more drama than Sam Bradford board. Sam Bradford was just kind of ruined, unfortunately, and then he could never get it back.
Yeah.
But I see this as a similar situation where I think we're going to hear a lot in the offseason that he is going to be salvageable and people are going to take chances on him. And
I would imagine
work for us.
I think that Sam Darnold, what he did needs to be like a thing that any quarterback can do. Go down to Carolina where you think it can't be any worse and you find out it actually could get a lot worse. Then go over to San Francisco and see like be exposed to the absolute dream, the oasis of being a quarterback and what that's like. And then, you know, move on. We'll see where Sam Darnold potentially goes next year. He'll probably compete for a job just because like people will hope that the Kyle Shanahan magic has rubbed off on him as it does for some guys. So maybe if we can just get that into like the Silk Road of quarterbacks where they come from the upstate New York all the way down and then just go out to the West Coast.
The Silk Road. Yeah, look, and we forget, I just forgot until just right now that like Sam Bradford was being hyped up in the offseason as being the front runner for that starting job in San Fran. So I think we all speculated that was not going to be the case, and it turned out being that way. But it doesn't mean that other teams, now that you said it, will probably take a chance on Sam Bradford as a backup at minimum. And let's face it, there's a lot of teams whose backup quarterback and their quarterback depth charts in general have been exposed this year with the amount of injuries that has happened. So someone will be looking for a safety net.
There will, and I think he's shown, honestly, like he's playing in an offense that was designed for Aaron Rodgers, and that's to say it was designed with no design because there really isn't much concept to what they have going on there. It was supposed to be Rodgers game to game coming up with somewhat of a script, having more involvement than he's ever had, and approaching each defense differently. And instead, they just kind of tried to do a half-ass version of that with Zach Wilson. And I thought, as awful as he is, and he's horrific, I thought he showed that he could at least compete for a starting job like an Andy Dalton's been doing, or, you know, like these guys who are in their 30s that are competing with the young rookie that's coming in, like a Mitch Trubisky, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and he's had some flashes where we're reminded that there is a high level of talent there. He just tends to not have his head around him, unfortunately, which brings up a question for another day to think about. But like, just would you rather have a guy with the talent and no head, or the guy with all the head and no talent? Because I think we have plenty of examples of that around the league now between Zach Wilson and Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's examples for both ways that are both successful and bad. So we could do a whole show on that probably.
We might have to table that one. That'd be a good. That'll be our like we're dying for content in June kind of pod.
Exactly, because you know what's coming. And speaking of other QB injuries, just reading here now, I might be a day late on this. I don't know. I think it actually just came out today. Now I'm looking at it. Anthony Richardson is progressing faster than expected. I don't know if he's going to the same Aaron Rodgers doctor or what, but he's hoping to start throwing next month, which, if anything, just confirms that we should have a full go Anthony Richardson by the time things start rolling around next season for training camps.
Yes, that's the dream. And it's also a little unnerving because like everything, you just take all the articles from Andrew Luck's rehab, take Andrew Luck's name out of it and insert Anthony Richardson. It's like, it feels very similar. And obviously that's not comparing apples to apples, but it's like, you know, this is the same organization. This is the same management team still going on. So it makes you a little hesitant in ways, but there's nothing that I think any team needs more than the Colts need an actual upgrade at their quarterback position. Because I honestly think like Gardner Minshew he's a 2 or 3 game guy and they're stretching him out and they're winning because of the they're winning because of the culture. They're winning because of the skill position guys. Like, he is not having a good season, but because he's playing in 2023, he looks like a top 20 quarterback. So I'm just praying that all this goes well for our boy.
He's having one of those like mini Jameis Winston runs here where he's throwing a
Yeah.
ton of interceptions, but he's also throwing a bunch of touchdowns. And a lot of that's because Jonathan Taylor hasn't been there. And Jonathan Taylor is expected to come back. It looks like a little tidbit here from Brian Scott, who I write the Inside the Medical Tent with, says he's very close to returning from his fractured thumb, and he practiced today, actually. So it's looking very comfortable that he will be coming back, if not this week, definitely next week. So yeah, it's Jonathan Taylor on the up. That should definitely help Gardner Minshew out over there. And look, when it comes to Anthony Richardson, that's what's good about these comments that we're seeing, that these are coming from him. At least the comments that I'm reading here are directly from him, not through an agent, not through the team. So you bring up the way the team and management handled Andrew Luck in the past, which was 100% sketchy, and we all know that now. This is at least coming directly from Richardson, which should hopefully, squash some of the doubt for us moving forward.
It absolutely shouldn't. And it could, honestly, it couldn't come. Sorry, I'm losing my phrase here. Jonathan Taylor coming back, it really honestly is like a desperate need for them. They have not gotten the Zach Moss production that they were getting earlier on this year. And that's killing teams right now. The game script has played a little bit of that. Also, Moss has been banged up, but I mean, like, they need a full send Jonathan Taylor, and they've got a pretty damn nice end to the season as far as the matchups they're going to have. So they might get some juice out of him if they can bring him back, God willing.
Yeah, and speaking of Zach Moss, I just quickly looked him up here for his latest injury report. Did not practice today, still with the forearm. So it's not looking great for Moss. Although in today's age, a Wednesday not practice is kind of, at this time of year especially, it's not the end of the world. Friday is really the only day that matters on these injury reports these days.
That forearm, man, that's just been his bugaboo, hasn't it? I didn't even who continues to have forearm issues. That's such a strange.
It's a strange one. It's a strange one. But at the other end of the running back position here, another guy who is probably very valuable to some teams who are still in it here is Josh Jacobs, who we missed this past week. He's trending towards playing in week 16, so that's fantastic news, because he was just like this over the last his last 3 or 4 games, or a big chunk of the season. It felt like he was just consistent. He wasn't really taking the top off. Like, he had some games last year where he opened our eyes and he was hitting ceilings. But look, this year you kind of just wanted consistency with scoring being down. I mean fantasy, not in the NFL, but with fantasy scoring being down and so many injuries, this was one of those years that you're just really happy with a consistent floor. Like, I feel like ceilings were hard to reach for this year.
No doubt about it. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who's like really one of the only bell cows in the league. And like what you alluded to, the little stretch that he had, coincided with the interim coach, and interim coaches, our bread and butter for fantasy. God, I love them. I love interim coaches just about more. That's the big winner of this year and maybe the last 2 years, because they're usually taking over a floundering situation that you're begging for a change anyways. No one's ever like, oh, fire the guy who's lighting it up for my wide receivers. No, it doesn't really happen. So Josh Jacobs coming back, he's got a pretty breezy end to the season as well. He had a very nice game against Kansas City. Really continued to show that explosiveness that we were worried he might have been losing with all the carries from last year. As we got later on in the season, he'd only gotten a little bit better, and a little break in a game that your team wins, puts up 63 points. The starters are going to be fresh coming out for the next one. So hopefully we get some banging out of him against Kansas City and the Colts after that. I mean, that's a dream matchup in the finals.
Yeah, I think things would look good there for Jacobs going forward. Say the Raiders went out here down the stretch, even that would put them at 8-8. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be enough to sneak into the playoffs, just considering that all the Bengals, Colts, Texans, and Bills are all 8-6. It just doesn't seem doable for that last spot. But that's all right. Still, I think just for their morale as a whole, coming off the Josh McDaniels experience, they need just that morale boost in that team.
Yeah.
And interim head coaches, it's a very simple formula for them why they give success with fantasy players. And it's because they tend to lean on their stars because it's what is the safest route for them. It's what's comfortable. And hell, usually ownership is saying to them, hey, just don't go out there and fuck it up. Use what we paid for. And that's what they do.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen. So that's going to continue, I think.
They're players coaches, and they want to please the players. They want old school smash mouth football. And there's not a lot of like bubble screens, and you don't see a lot of motion sweeps from interim coaches. It's usually pretty standard.
Just a couple more, and these will be quick hitters just to update you. Chris Olave looking to play tomorrow night. Today's Wednesday. Yes, play tomorrow night. It looks like James Cook was out today, but just with an illness, so he should be okay coming into this week, coming off of his big game. Tyreek Hill, not at practice, but I'm assuming he will be good to go, I believe. I'm taking a quick look at Brian's notes here. It's still the same ankle injury, but he doesn't know for sure if he's going to be in. So just some more injury news that is useful to us going forward here. And hoping everyone is killing it in their championship matchups. We're going to take a quick early break here, and then we're going to jump into our Christmas lists and thoughts. I think we're going to talk about some of the things we didn't get for Christmas throughout the season and all the stuff that we want to get for Christmas going into this off season. So stick around. We will be right back.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever, and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code TSSDYNASTY to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
And it is the Christmas season. I hope you've been making your list. I hope you've been keeping track of everything that you're mad at Santa for not coming through for you with. And let's start there because as always, we go into the season expecting something out of some guys. We're expecting it. We make takes, and we're hoping to run with those, and they just don't work out. I think for me, the one biggest thing I didn't get for as a gift this season that I can probably point to as being the number one factor as to why I had such a down year across all my leagues. It's because I was way too high and overexposed on Mr. Miles Sanders. Because when you make your whole draft plan with the idea that you're going to get what you expect to be an RB1 later than and you stock up on other positions, and then all of a sudden you have nobody, and then of course injuries coupled with that for your RB2s, RB3s, whatever. It killed me in multiple leagues, and it was just unfortunately with the injuries, it just could not recover from it this year. Were you overexposed to Miles Sanders as well?
I definitely thought it was going to be an opportunity. I kind of, for most of the offseason, I really thought that he was underpriced. I thought that this was going to be, I wasn't expecting like a 1,300 yard, 12 touchdown season, but I thought this would be like a nice mid RB2 with maybe some RB1 boom weeks in him. And he's basically been a non-factor. I mean, he's been on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues. And I mean, we're talking Dynasty, but just to use like redraft as a little kind of like microcosm on where he is right now, he's been a redraft superstar or a waiver wire superstar for probably going on the better part of 6 weeks now. He hasn't had a finish as RB2 since week 3. And this is, you had talked about interim coaches, right? Like this says more about Miles Sanders than it does an interim coach. Because Chuba Hubbard Chuba. God, I always want to call him Chuba Hubbard. He has been a waiver wire darling to kind of counteract with Miles Sanders. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, he's been fine, and unfortunately, the way that a lot of my leagues went, where I was chasing value at running back because I was so confident in those like that beginning of those mid rounds in the running back field that it just crushed me because I had a lot of Miles Sanders and Dameon Pierce pairs. And that
God.
just it was a
Yeah.
bad year, man. It was a bad year this year, and it happens. But so that's what I didn't get for I guess for fantasy Christmas this year was I didn't get Miles Sanders and I didn't get Damian Pierce.
That's okay. There's always next year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I've got a I didn't get either, and it's a little more. It's just old balls. I went in and I tried to acquire old guys that I thought had one last ride in them, and I was sadly mistaken. Darren Waller, Derrick Henry, Adam Thielen, and there were moments, and I've got a little Derrick Henry talk, sidebar on him coming up in a little bit, but I was just hoping I saw guys who I thought had opportunity share at their respective positions that I thought were still being slightly undervalued for what I thought the team mentality was from the coaching aspect. And honestly, there were parts of the season where I felt like those were home runs. Sadly, that was like a 3-week stretch for all of them in different times. So it never even congealed the way I'd liked it to. But it was a young man's game this year. It sadly was.
Yeah. Yeah, and and Thielen gave us the most hope there for a little bit to start the year off. And then as always, what happens when someone gets off to such a hot start like he did and was the number one wide receiver for a little stretch there to start, people kind of hold out that that's going to happen again at some point in the season, and it just never did. Those people most likely have fallen at this point because they were probably sliding him in there thinking it could happen still, and it happens to all of us. We all.
It does. It doesn't matter how much good advice we give or hear or absorb. I know. I would I would recommend to everybody out there, like, sell high. But when it comes to my team, I'm like, oh no, I'm never selling this guy.
I'm glad you said that because that's something that I found I'm awful with. Like, I feel very confident in like with the advice that I give and the research I do to help others. Like, I feel confident in that research. I feel gutsy in those calls and but solidified in those calls. I am so indecisive with my own teams though. I don't know why I can't separate it, but I'm glad to hear that other people in the industry have the same issue.
I know. We honestly need like a like the Ghost of Christmas Past or like whatever. What's the story of Christmas? We need that so that we can take a step back out and watch ourselves and be like, no, like the McConaughey meme that everybody sends where he's and he's like knocking on the. No, I wish we could actually do that because I feel like I'd learn a lot.
Oh, 100% learn a lot. I at one point written an article on Cordell Patterson. I think it was end of the season last season. I called it Fantasy 2020, where it was the reason. Oh no, it was 2 seasons ago when he had his big season after the year he had that big season no one expected with the Falcons. But yeah, it's true. When you have that fantasy hindsight as 2020 moment, you look and say, oh, this is why I should have expected Cordell Patterson to go off. Like, I missed all the signs, and there they were right there. And if only I dug deeper or done something different. Shaw Dynasty in the chat here asking, is Darren Waller is it over for Darren Waller? Do you think it's over for Darren Waller? I personally don't think it's over for Darren Waller. I still feel like the flashes we saw before he got hurt, I think he still has it. This is one of those situations where I think not having Daniel Jones being the Daniel Jones that they needed him to be, whether it's, and you can make arguments both ways, that it's because the way the offense was run is because of his overhyped talent, whatever. I just don't think the situation was what we were all hoping it to be. Is it over for Darren Waller to be a potential top 3 tight end? Yes, I think that if that's what you're calling over for him, yes. But in today's day and age, do I think if things fall back together health-wise for him next year, do I think he can still be a top 10 tight end? I think he's still got that.
We might be benefiting from him finally being priced at a ADP that we can all swallow. You might be able to, pry him away from some, if you're in a win now situation, or you might be able to pry him away from somebody for significantly cheaper had he actually had a long, solid season this year. I mean, he had like a 25-yard up and out against the Saints. And I was like, God, this guy can still play. He just doesn't have the mileage on him that a 31-year-old typically would. There'll be a team that can go a lot of different directions. I think they learned their lesson this year to where they got too cute. And they wanted to kind of be that do more with less roster and put it all in the coaching than maybe they're actually talented enough to do, especially in a division with the Eagles and the Cowboys. So they got exposed this year, and I think they'll bounce back, and Waller should benefit from that tremendously.
Do you think Brian Daboll is the type of coach that can handle that type of plan anyways, where he can make up for a lesser talented team? Or do you think he's just the type of coach that he needs that talent around him to be able to be successful with the way he runs a team?
I think that like these guys get a little narcissistic when they can do something like transform a Josh Allen or transform a Lamar Jackson, and then they really rest on those laurels a little bit. He really did to a lesser extent. He transformed Daniel Jones into a less of a turnover machine and more of a game manager, which was like, it's impressive in its own right. But it's like, okay, you need to still shoot higher than that. There doesn't need to be like the Mike Tomlin, like, do, like I said, really do more with less is like the perfect way to say it. Like, you need to progress. And there's guys across the league who know that, who like Sean McVay going out and getting Stafford, Kyle Shanahan doing everything he can to get a quarterback that can be consistent. Like that needs to be what we see out of Daboll. Remains to be said, though.
Yeah, and that's where I think there was a disconnect in philosophy, because if you're gonna go with a route of having, a guy like Daniel Jones, where in order for him to be successful, you do need to reel him in a little bit and make him more of a game manager type quarterback, which, as you just said, found success with that. Doing that, unfortunately, you need healthy talent around a game manager style quarterback like that. And unfortunately, once Barkley was injured and then once Waller was injured, like there's nobody really else on that team to consistently go to carry a game manager style quarterback. If you want Daniel Jones to be, or if you had a quarterback like a Josh Allen still on that team, I feel like Allen could have, maybe he probably couldn't have made it all work for the Giants, because I do think that wide receiver core is just too
gross.
Yeah, it's just too gross. So that's still probably too much of an ask, but could they have been a little bit better? Sure, they could have. But if you're going to do a game manager style quarterback, you got to have weapons around them, and you got to have reliable, healthy weapons. And unfortunately, Barkley and Waller are just not reliable from a health standpoint.
No, they're really not. It's been reported that. Yeah, that's been, and obviously they play like that. That's a team that plays, the coach is being forced to do something that he doesn't want to do. And that's probably honestly smart for him to distance, even if he didn't, to float it out there. Like, I didn't want to do this. That's just
it's
good.
So true.
That's good football, right? Yeah. Smart.
Do you feel like that's starting to be what is kind of happening with the Patriots, with Bill and Kraft, and because it feels like Bill is just completely unwilling to talk about Zappy or Jones or the quarterback situation in general? I mean, shocker, he's unwilling to talk. That shouldn't be a surprise, I guess. But it feels like a little extra these days, where it does seem like he's using his frustration on the mic to the press to almost broadcast that this is not what I've wanted to do this whole year.
No, honestly, and I think that I can't tell if that's a Bill thing or if he speaks for all of the old guard, because it's kind of happening to all of them. Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick, and I don't want to group Pete Carroll in that, because I do think that he's kind of trying to evolve in a certain way, but like they all found success with something, great success really. And it does still feel like they're unwilling to turn the page for one way or another. And they're just trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. So I trust Bill more than any of them to eventually right the ship. I just wonder if he still does that on the East Coast.
Well, I was going to say, it's now just a question of what ship he's riding, because it does feel like, at least from the local reports up here, it feels like he's done in New England. I know it seems like this past week there was some, I guess, damage control, it seemed like, in the media, where there was, reports possibly getting pushed out there by the Patriots or by Bill's team saying like that no decision's been made. And it feels like a posturing move. It feels like the team is putting that out there as a way to be like, no, like we're trying to regain any chance we have at getting compensation for this guy from a team, which it doesn't feel like is going to happen. Like, I don't see them getting any picks or whatever for a trade for Bill at this point.
It's going to be interesting because, and I'll talk about it more. I've got another another wish list here. And you know what? Let's just, if you don't mind, we'll transition into it because it's perfect for it.
We're free flowing tonight.
This is our company Christmas party. We're letting it rain. I want 11 new coaches in the NFL in 2024.
I love it.
And it's quite a list. Falcons, Saints, Panthers, Commanders, Bears, Patriots, Raiders, Chargers, Jets, Steelers, Titans. Now, I'm not going to get everything that I hope for. That's what happens when you're a kid, right? You write out a long list and you maybe get a little something off it, but you always make your list long. I want a complete changing in a guard across the board. I think it's healthy and I think we talked about this a little bit last week. It would be healthy for the Patriots to do so. I think that they're a very well-run organization and that they would be able to survive in a new era, in a new environment as long as they change the guard. I know that there's a lot of Belichick lifers.
If Bill goes, the disciples have to go too.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's not you can't deny Peter 3 times and then come back to work the next day. You have to you got to bite the bullet with him and lay your life. That's what martyrs are, right? That's what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
So and I mean, if he wants to continue his career on somewhere else, I think he'd fit in appropriately, but also it makes you wonder, like he really did pull off the ultimate tank job. And I would hate for that to be for waste if it was intentional. By doing pulling the QBs out and not saying who's going to start and shattering everybody's confidence every single week. I mean, it's a master class in how to tank.
Well, the big talk this past week coming out of that Chiefs game was just questioning some of the decisions he made of why he chose to be conservative in certain spots, and when they really weren't out of the game until the second half. There has been that the idea has been put out there that this is Bill's way of keeping the game just close enough so that at the end of the year he can say, oh, we've had this many losses by only 1 possession or 2 possessions. Like, we really weren't that far out. Basically to say our record may say we're 3 and whatever, but we're better. We were better than that. So you can't really point it all at me. And would I be surprised if Bill was thinking that deep into it and pulling those strings? No. Because I think we've seen that he's got the type of mind that he does think a plan that far through.
He absolutely does. He's like Logan Roy. He has a watchful eye on every single aspect of his operation and how to manipulate it. I don't think this is a guy that's ever lost his fastball. I think that he's not working with a full deck and they're kind of in transition, which is what happens. And, a lot of teams in the past have just moved on. The Eagles just moved on from Andy Reid. Like, that's a thing that happens, and those coaches go on and they find success somewhere else, especially when you're at that upper elite level. So it's, what's happening is within his grasp. Yeah.
Well, I love your list. And you went through the list pretty quick about the 11 teams that you want new coaches on. But if I missed one that it wasn't obvious, I apologize here. But some of the guys you said there are guys that if they are out of their current team, they are 100% still a head coach on another team next year.
Yeah.
Your Mike Tomlin, your Mike Vrabels, your Bill Belichick. Yeah. Like, if Bill Belichick is out and chooses to keep coaching, like, those 3 right there for sure are head coaches still next year. So it mixes it up a little bit. Do you see anybody coming up from the college ranks to grab a head coaching job? I feel like the talk on Harbaugh has kind of disappeared. After all of his fallout of getting suspended. Do you feel like Harbaugh is still a guy that might slide into the NFL next year? Because it does seem like I don't think your number's far off as far as the amount of openings there's going to be.
Yeah, I would say my pie in the sky was 11, but realistically, we're probably looking at about 9. And that's still a really, really, really high number. So just by default, I would say that you were hearing Harbaugh linked to the Denver job last year. Teams, he's gonna be in the mix, and honestly, he probably should be in the mix because he's proven that he can do it, and he runs Michigan like an NFL program. So I don't think he would niche much. The NFL is at an all-time low from 100%. He's still got it. Maybe he takes over the Patriots. Who knows? That'd be his bread and butter.
Hey, you know what? I wouldn't hate it, honestly, but that's another conversation.
Something that I think is interesting is that if things continue on the course that they are, and my beloved Buccaneers come out of the NFC South, you're gonna be looking at 3 head coaching vacancies, possibly with Panthers, Falcons, and Saints. That's really interesting. But what I think is fascinating about a lot of these teams is they're very talented and can be turned around very, very quickly. I don't think it would take more than a year or two for a team to kind of dig themselves out of the mud. Very much like the Jaguars last year. Now, not everybody has a Trevor Lawrence on their roster, but Trevor Lawrence has kind of shown that he's not exactly that upper echelon of quarterback himself. So you bring in some, you'll see it's the barrier for success is as low as I could ever remember it. So I could see some teams swinging pretty outlandishly.
Well, and I can't remember if this team was on your list or not, but the comparison you just made reminded me of it perfectly. Was the Cowboys on your list?
No, but they're dying to be. They're dying to be on this list. I'm telling you,
because this is one that. So this is the same thing. I kind of feel like I feel the same way. This is one that's teetering for me because we're starting to see that team crack here. I mean, the way they've lost the games that they have lost have been eye-opening and brutal, to say the least. If this team goes into the playoffs here and just absolutely disappoints like they seem to do year in and year out, I don't see how Jerry Jones can go back to Mike McCarthy again. I mean, when you have a roster consisting of Dak Prescott, who just until this last week was the leader in the house for MVP, and deservedly so, he's quietly, and I say quietly because I feel like just not enough people have talked about it, having one of his best statistical years that he's had as a career. CeeDee Lamb on that team. Hell, Jake Ferguson is looking to be a top-end tight end for that team. And yes, I know I've shit on Tony Pollard, but I mean, it's still between him and Rico Dowdle, and they still have a usable backfield to this team should be humming. The defense I know has some injuries, but even the defense, the way that defense started this year looked unstoppable. And if they go out there and just absolutely flop, it's just one of those situations where, I think a team, I don't know what they'll be at the end of the year, 13-4 or whatever the hell the numbers come out to now. You can have a team like that still fires their head coach, I think. Especially, look, let's be honest. If Bill Belichick is on the market and Jerry Jones is not going to be able to resist himself. He's gonna be fishing him in with a pole and dragging him down to Dallas.
That's an absolute match made in heaven. There's two scenarios that I would bet on if the Cowboys were to move on. One would be Bill Belichick. That would just be that's a dream scenario, and that's the universe that I want to live in. So I will manifest the destiny that I want. The second would be a move that's familiar to the Cowboys, which is promoting from within, which would be let Mike McCarthy go and then let Dan Quinn run the show. Dan Quinn is, his time from Atlanta is very mixed because it's really hard to set most of his success came from when Kyle Shanahan was his offensive coordinator. So it's hard to say if he's like a Mike McCarthy type or he just kind of he runs the ship, but he doesn't really contribute a terribly large amount. I mean, as far as fantasy goes and dynasty goes, I would be happy to see consistency from Dallas because it really did feel like they came of age this year in the regular season. They're going to get stomped in the playoffs because they're going to have to play at least 2 road playoff games, but I'm okay with that. I can live with that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I from an strictly an NFL fan standpoint, I do enjoy watching Dallas lose. It's not like I hate Dallas. It's not, but for some reason it's fun. I don't know why. It's the train crash or the car crash or whatever. So yeah, I honestly don't know how. I don't know how I would feel about Bill down in Dallas. Do I think he would have success with that team? I do, because I think that team is it's too stacked. But at the same time, I don't know how he would mesh with the way that's a very open, free flowing, honest kind of organization when it comes to the media. I can't see Bill just going down there and trying to talk to the media like he talks to them up here and having any success. He's going to do that in his time, and the players are going to keep talking. Yeah. Jerry Jones is going to keep talking. It's going to be for nothing.
They need that. They need that, though. They need Bill Belichick to get down there and be like, look, you guys talk too much. You need to here's what I do. Because, he is, and this, he's beloved by all who work for him. So for him to be able to, he could step into any of these coaching vacancies and immediately just win everybody over with the, hilarious, knowledgeable guy that he's said to be in private. and then still continue to be like the classic Bill to the media. And maybe the players and maybe Jerry will pick something up from that. I doubt it, but maybe.
Yeah, I doubt it too. We'll see, I guess, in the end. Yeah, we'll see. Real fast, and then we're gonna hit a break here. A comment here from Where's the Beef? Derrick Henry to the Cowboys. Let's get it done. Look, there's worse teams Henry could go to have his last hurrah. And that'll be a perfect segue into what I believe is Chuck's next wish list item when we come back from this quick commercial break from Jazz Casino.
Jazz, Sportsbook, Casino, and Racebook, the world's best resource for all-purpose online wagering. For over 20 years, Jazz has provided the best and quickest payouts in sports and entertainment wagers. Live sports betting, covering all the major sports leagues, and even into the new and exciting world of esports. Down the stretch you'll come, with Jazz's online horse wagering. Get paid when you play with Jazz's fun and exciting online casino games. Go online now and use the promo code TSS for our new members deals. Jazz Sportsbook, Casino, and Racebook, the world's best resource for online wagering.
That's right. Derrick Henry is going to be the subject of this next little segment here because Chuck has some wishes for Derrick Henry. He's put down on his list to send to Santa. So, Chuck, what are you looking for out of Derrick Henry for Christmas?
I want Derrick Henry to officially pass the torch to Tajay Spears. And this is a little bit of an overreaction, but I came into the season hoping for some version of this if my Derrick Henry stock didn't pan out, because I tried to get as much handcuffing of Tajay Spears as I did. Henry's coming off of, a pretty brutal game against the Texans. He's held the 3 points, but prior to that, 200 yards and 6 touchdowns over his previous games. So, there's obviously still a little juice in there. I love the guy, but he's entering into his Latavius Murray, Adrian Peterson, hired gun, come on in, score 8 to 9 touchdowns on minimal carries. That is the modern NFL. That is what happens now. And Spears has looked good. And in reality, it's his receiving game that I think can really give us hope. In 4 of the 7 games he's played with Levis, he's gone over 6 targets, which means if they run this puppy back, he has that kind of Rachaad White potential for 2024, because we're talking about both of these teams have very bottom level offensive line play. What makes them successful is that their coaches will give them the ball no matter how the game script goes or how many points they're down, and they can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I'd like to see – it felt like a changing of the guard on Sunday. Again, if Derrick Henry is famous for one thing, he's famous for obliterating the Texans and putting up as many possible points as a running back can do, and it didn't happen. So it's like seeing your favorite TV show come to an end. I hope they nail the finale.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think we can all eat a little crow when we were talking about Tajay Spears not having any knees or ACLs or whatever everybody was saying, because he's proven us wrong. Yeah. This is something that I think the Titans have gotten right to this point. There's been, because of the state of their team and season, there's been no need to, I guess, rush Henry out the door. There's been no need to rush Spears into it. I feel like this is the first time in a while we're seeing a team handle the transition. Even though it's not as exciting for us fantasy managers from an NFL standpoint, it makes sense. It's the smart way to do it. And the fact that we're also in the same sentence talking about Mike Vrabel possibly being out there, it seems like they don't mesh, because it seems like Titans are doing a lot right. It just seems like they've not, unfortunately, put it all together. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of that has to do with the defensive side of the ball, and maybe needing one more piece on offense. The offensive line obviously needs a lot, but every team's offensive line sucks other than the Eagles. You're still on mute again there, buddy.
Oh, damn it. I don't know why it keeps happening. Sorry. That does feel like that's going to be another big talk this offseason. It's just been, like you just alluded to, it has been horrific offensive line play across the league. But you can't have a team that's entire crux is running the ball or play action so that you can bomb it deep with Will Levis. You can't have that while also having arguably one of the worst offensive lines of the last 2 to 3 years. So who knows, how do you separate how much Derrick Henry is declining versus how much is he having to take on more than he ever has in the previous years at his advanced age? So it's not going to be an easy road ahead for whoever does take the mantle next year, whether it is Henry again or whether it is Tajay Spears. But I do know that these next 2 weeks will tell us just about everything we need to know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And on the subject of the offensive lines, like I feel like this is an issue with this. I feel like lines in general, both defensive and offensive, have gotten smaller from a literal physical standpoint. Not necessarily weaker, but just smaller from a build size. And it's I think defensive lines got that curve going because I think they try to get faster, and which is fine. But obviously, then offensive lines reacted and said, "Well, we need to be faster to stop them." But what that creates is that creates this inability to stop a guy off the defensive line who just automatically has that advantage with a first step and having the offensive lineman needing to react. We are seeing so much pressure right up the middle against all offenses across the league this year. And that's where these quarterbacks, unfortunately, they're getting hurt because they're getting put I don't want to get too technical here, but their footwork is getting so off balance because they're having to slide to the side, they're having to spin, and then all of a sudden they get rolled up on. We're getting killed with that. That's putting them in more injury-prone situations. We got to get back to a balance of the middle just needs to be clogged up. And then when these they don't know how to deal with that pressure right in their face, and they panic, and now we're getting intercepted. It's a mess.
No, you're right. It's compounding issues. It just gets worse as they get further down the chain. I'm really happy to hear you talk about that because I don't feel like I've heard anybody mention this year. All the focus has been on the poor quarterback play, and very little of it has been about how none of these guys have hardly any time to work with. Nobody's sitting in the pocket. They're not calling for I'm sorry. These guys they're not calling for like 3-step drops. These teams are asking these quarterbacks with subpar lines to take 5-7 foot drops and they're hanging them out to dry.
Yeah, that fifth step is an immediate turn about face and running to the sideline. Like that's basically what offenses are now, and it's not designed that way. I mean, a lot of teams have had to design them that way just to get that time that they're looking for. It's a mess. I know when I started looking up some stats like a few weeks ago. I forget exactly when it was, but at that time, I want to say it was maybe week 12. I know sacks were up like 1.4 or something like that, and hurries against quarterbacks were up like 0.5, somewhere around those numbers. So it's definitely an increase.
The one of the things that I really enjoy tracking, and I track it because somebody else tracks it, so I track them tracking it. I'm like Santa Claus. Is Ian Hart? He tracks the havoc rate, which is all that stuff you mentioned with turnovers involved, just like what defenses are making it the hardest turnover wise. And it's up weekly as we get closer to the week. And that's for a lot of reasons. But honestly, the fact that it's consistently gone up just tells you that like defenses are taking full advantage of every opportunity that they're being given.
Yeah, and credit defenses and credit the defensive coordinators and all that because they've worked with what they've been given and they've taken advantage. So I think you nailed it on the head there. Something I want for so you alluded to it, but something I want for Christmas, I guess, from Santa would be for a competent coach to be on the Atlanta Falcons. More so than I think the Cowboys, because there's just too many weapons. And I said it in the offseason, and some people laughed at me, but I said, I was like, this, I don't trust that these weapons are going to be utilized. And it turned out they're just not. And Arthur Smith needs to go and just they need to just rely on the fact that they have Bijan Robinson, they have Drake London, and they have Kyle Pitts. That isn't changing. Now they don't have a quarterback, so that's what that is. But hell, is there any like backup even that has come in for a long period here that has proven yourself to you enough that they can at least go down there and be a more capable bridge guy than a Desmond Ridder for Atlanta? Like say somehow Jake Browning or Aiden O'Connell, and one of these guys who have just had a nice little better than expected run. Would you rather than bring in someone like that in Atlanta to be a bridge quarterback to the next guy, or do you think Desmond Ridder is good enough to just all he needs is a different coach and he'll be able to bridge that gap for them? He's definitely not the long-term guy.
So it's I have a lot of emotions about everything you just said because whether or not Desmond Ridder has hope, I don't want to see him in a Falcons jersey ever again. He can be a reclamation project somewhere else. I think he's like I think he's the issue they're having with him is an issue they had with Mariota.
Oh, you went mute again. Lost you for a second. Mr. Maxim Analyst of the Year. Yeah, no, there was a weird delay and then you went muted.
I don't know why I did that. He's suffering from the same problem that Marcus Mariota suffered from, which is that they're relatively talented,
but they don't have high football IQ. They don't even have medium football IQ. And that's why they can't play consistently. And that happens to a lot of guys, but their flaws are more exemplified because they usually make them at the absolute worst time.
Yeah.
So my hope for the team, which is completely separate from, it's hard to envision another quarterback in this current system. So my hope is that it's a new system with a new coach. And so my dream, and this is on my Christmas wish list, is Kirk Cousins to the Atlanta Falcons. I want the
Matt Ryan 2.0, huh?
He's 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. I just want a steady pro presence. These are pro-ready players. Are not players that need to be ushered along. They have shown in the last 3 years for Kyle Pitts, that all of these guys are ready to succeed. They just don't have the consistency at quarterback. And I don't want a half measure. I like Jake Browning. I think he could have success. I don't want a guy that I'm not sure is going to work in Atlanta. I want a guy that I know has put up fantasy production across the board anywhere he's been, regardless of who he's been with. And to me, that's a Kirk Cousins type. It's a Justin Fields type if there's a trade involved there. I just want a guy that I know can do it. I don't want any more of these Kenny Pickett's. I don't want any more of these Mitch Trubisky's. Just Kirk Cousins, Atlanta.
You're the first person I've heard say that. I love that. I love the thought of that. I think that makes so much sense for every reason you just said. I'm not convinced, and maybe you feel otherwise. I'm not convinced that, and this is going to sound awful, that Kirk Cousins' goofiness fits in Atlanta. Can you imagine him with that?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about him courtside at Hawks games with like Future and T.I. and Ludacris, and then there's Kirk Cousins. I don't know if I don't even know if they have Coles in Atlanta. It's I'll have to do some Googling after this just to confirm, but that's a factor. Is Kirk Cousins a Minnesota guy or is he an Atlanta guy? That could be a deal breaker.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins does feel like a smaller market, and I know technically, I guess you can consider Atlanta a smaller market, but to me, it's a big city. It's a high populous area that could easily fill that stadium up. So, Kirko Chains. Where's the beef? Says Kirko Chains.
Oh, I forgot about that. Damn it! You know what? Sold. Okay, he can play anywhere. I take it back.
You're right. I just forget about that too. That's a solid shout out there.
Good pull.
What was I just lost my last wish list here. It was just on the top of my head, and then you said Kirko Chains, and now that invaded my brain.
The third character of the show.
Yeah. No, I think my I just completely blanked on my last freaking wish list item, and that's damn near awful.
I got you. Think about it a little bit longer because I got a quick one we can do, and then we'll come back. We'll finish with you. So I want all of the underprivileged wide receivers to get the quarterback they deserve. So it's a nice little transition out of what we're talking about, right? So DJ Moore this year basically cemented for all coming time that whenever there's a guy we think is talented at wide receiver and he doesn't have the quarterback play that we want, we will demand that he is traded. Terry McLaurin, Jacoby Myers, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London. There's probably 10 more, but those are the guys that are written down as far as guys that I've watched suffer these last 2 years they're just being robbed of what I think is more talented than I probably even expected them to be. Statistics, career, anything that comes with that. I said Jacoby Myers and not Devontae Adams because Devontae Adams knows what it's like to play with a Hall of Fame quarterback. But I just
it's
want,
like you read my mind. I was going to ask why you went that direction. So okay, that makes
these guys have never had a home, or at least they've never had a family that they can call their own. So if I were going to wish for something this year, I want them to have the career that I think they deserve.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That makes sense. I did think of my last wish list item. It's a more of a short vision item here. And
Rip it.
a bit spiteful of me as a Patriots fan, but I am somewhere deep in the depths of my football love and heart here, cheering for Matt Patricia to have success as the new DC in Philly and lead them to a Super Bowl, to win another ring somewhere else, just so you can really look back at this whole seaon laughing and saying you thought it was me. So when it comes to the Patriots, which I still agree, he was a big problem. But the stage is now just set with how bad the Patriots are, that I kind of want to see that chaos of, because he's the type of guy we saw in the Patriots parades, the Roger Goodell clown nose show. Like,
yeah,
I just feel like there would be something said or done, because he's kept his mouth shut all year.
Yeah.
But God, if he goes out there and wins a Super Bowl as the DC now for the Eagles, I feel like there'd be something said that would be just perfect.
That is the most New England self-deprecation. If we're gonna be bad, if we're gonna be bad, I want it to be the worst it's ever been.
I want it to be newsworthy so I can laugh.
Yeah, you want a funeral. And sometimes, honestly, it's like I don't know exactly what the term is, but it's akin to like a hate watch, where it's like, I get a certain pleasure out of knowing that this is going to drive people absolutely crazy. And as content creators, we need as much of that as we can possibly get. I mean, I would be down. Sign me up. Yeah.
We feast off that, which is why, as a Patriots fan, when they beat the Steelers, it kind of pissed me off. Because I had just finally accepted that, screw it. We're going to suck. We're going to lose the rest of these games, and we're going to have a chance at the number 1 overall pick. We're definitely most likely getting the number 2 pick. I had accepted that fate. I was watching that Steelers game, like, kind of half-ass paying attention, like, oh, whatever, here we go, whatever. And then they won, and they still disappointed me this year. Even with a win, they found a way to still disappoint me.
Yeah, they disappointed everybody that night. That was devastation across the board. And that was really when I knew that all bets were off this season. And I know that sounds like a weird thing to say in week 14, I think it was. But really, it was like, everything's still on the table. This can still happen. Yeah. They can put up the most first half points post Tom Brady against the Steelers defense in Pittsburgh. All bets are off.
Yeah. Well, and at least it kind of got canceled out because the Carolina went out and somehow won in front of nobody this past week. So now the standings are back to the way they were, and we still got a chance at the number 1 overall pick, even though I don't believe, if Bill Belichick is still in charge at the helm, I don't trust him to make the right choice at this point of his drafting career. So, I mixed feelings, I guess, on whether or not I want that pick or not.
We've got a lot of,
and just to close this out, because I still don't believe in necessarily Caleb Williams or Drake May. Like, or I don't.
Well, at least you should be comforted knowing.
I don't think I feel good about this quarterback class.
You should feel comforted knowing that when it comes to drafting, is there anybody better than Bill Belichick?
Yeah. Nick Caserio, who's now gone. Let's see. He leans on Nick Caserio. He leans on, I forget the guy's name now, but there's another guy now that he leans on. That Bill. Bill's not going to be back. I won't have to worry about it. I'm stressing about nothing. Hello, world.
You still got to make the pick. Still got to make the pick.
Yeah, but he won't though. Look, that's going to do it for us here on this Christmas episode. Christmas is coming up this week, so I hope you're merry. I hope you're with your family, your friends, whoever it is that you have around you that you love and that loves you. Enjoy it. Enjoy some Christmas Day football. Not Christmas Day football. Christmas Eve football. There's not a Christmas Day game, right? Land the plane, Andrew.
I think we have like 3. I think we have like 3 Christmas Day games. I'm saying.
Is there? Okay. In my head here, because Christmas fell on Christmas Day's on a Monday, like I blanked.
Oh my God,
it's weird.
We have Raiders, Chiefs, Giants, Eagles, Ravens, 49ers, all on Christmas Day.
Hey, who knows? Raiders could put up 63 again, right?
Run it back.
We'll see. But once again, that's going to do it for us. Enjoy your nights. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.